The tortured artist. A grave stereotype that has become the accepted notion within our society. The tortured artist is someone who sacrifices sleep to do their art. It's some artist who glorifies their dark past and truly believes that being depressed makes their work better. They sacrifice all pleasure, all fun inside their lives, and they even throw away a happy relationship just to be an artist. This has even translated to the stereotype of a starving artist who's a person who wanted to be an artist so bad that they sacrificed their livelihood to do so. My question for you is, are these sacrifices worth it? Is being the tortured artist real? Is suffering required to do so? Is being a mentally ill person needed to create something truly great? My number one question for you is, do you have to be a tortured artist? Now, so I think so. So I'm gonna be a nerd for a second and utilize my science knowledge outside the classroom. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred. Now, you probably heard this before. This seems to be common knowledge. If we want to get really spiritual with this, as your favorite crystal chicks do, everything is energy, including your emotions. Whether we like to admit it or not, humans are not rational in whatsoever. Sure, every decision we make is based on logic, but that decision is always motivated by some form of emotion. Now, these people won't be artists, but let's look at superheroes, for example. Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, said Uncle Ben. We've all heard that quote, and that quote is attempting to explain the entire character of Spider-Man. We all know that the story from Spider-Man is that Peter Parker gets bit by a spider and gets powers. The logical decision made, Uncle Ben's quote, is that Peter Parker should use these powers to save others and help people like Spider-Man will. The emotional decision to do so came from the fact that this was said by his uncle. Peter feels bad about seeing his uncle die, and being Spider-Man is carried out within the name of Uncle Ben. If we look at the next character, same for Frank Castle, right? The Punisher. The logical decision made to carry out his revenge is an eye for an eye. Now, I'm not condoning violence or revenge, but a bunch of bad guys killed Frank Castle's family. Since they killed his family, hence he kills them in return. That decision was based on logic. Now, I'm not saying kill people, but this just makes sense. If someone does something to you, you do it to them. The emotional decision has been made when, throughout the show, now I'm just basing this off of the Netflix show, that he dreamed of his wife and kids. He feels alone without his family. All he thinks about is them. In his attempt to satiate his sadness, he bears the burden of the skull that's painted on his vest. A negative is turned into a positive. Something bad happened to them, but they took action against their negative emotions. Now let's look at some artists real quick. Stephen King is probably the most famous author of all time. Once he graduated college, he became an English teacher. He had started a family throughout college, a wife and a few children. His family struggled financially for a long time, taking on odd jobs as well to just to pay the bills further. Now, most artists know that once you come home from school, college classes, a job you hate, it makes it really hard to work on your art when you're so mentally drained from the day. One thought saved him, however. Stephen King had the emotional motivation. It's said that he didn't want to be just like his mother. Having his family struggle and having a loving wife that said the draft of Carrie he threw away was amazing. The logical decision here was that he didn't want to be the next poor teacher. The emotional backing was self-deprecation to not be just like his mother and hearing the loving words from his wife. Now, let's look at a bit of a more complicated example. The musical artist Femme. She has some pretty good music. I would highly recommend her. She makes sort of alternative pop music about mental health issues. From the website Tremors, and Femme said, "Dude, I fucking hate myself. I don't want to do this. I don't like what I'm making." It felt cathartic. Making this project was part of figuring out how to not hate myself. I actually feel like for the first time in a long time, I'm really happy. Now, this is the source of what people mean when they talk about the tortured artist. Femme was dealing with feelings of self-hatred instead of indulging in hedonistic activity, which I'm pretty sure she did because, she posts some pretty scandalous photos on Instagram, and she talks about doing drugs all the time. But regardless, she turned all these negative emotions and experiences inside her work and created this work of art for people to relate to. Now, the logical decision here was stop hating herself, right? Because the logic would be to make her life better. She doesn't want to hate herself. The emotional backing is the same, but it comes from a different place. Instead of external, the problem is internal. She feels horrible about herself. And Femme most likely saw that her fans were experiencing something similar to her, and she saw that she could help them. Now, from my perspective, this is what an artist's job is to do. I heard this quote from Jordan Peterson where he explains that the artist, whoever that may be, the musician, the filmmaker, the writer, the traditional artist, painter, drummers, whatever, their job is to push the human experience further, to dive into what makes us human, and that's why this may be the last non-tech job for human existence, would be to make art, because it's just naturally human. We need to relate to somebody, and within this new tech world, we don't really relate to nobody anymore. The things you see on Instagram are completely fake. The news we watch is completely fake. Some people just feel this paralysis, but when they watch movies, when they hear music, when they see art, they get that rush. They get that someone is experiencing the same thing I am, and that's what I hope to do as well. So to answer my original question, yes, being a tortured person can make you a great artist. Back to the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transferred. Some of the best artists in history were messed up in the head, depressed, or had tragic pasts. Even I, Scalia. Once I'm home from college or work, I pour my heart and soul inside the scripts and art pieces I make. I'm no stranger to trauma. I experienced lots of bad things when I was younger, and I didn't let them hold me back or make me a loser. I wanted to do something great with them, and I'm not very good yet, but at the very least, I know that I have a reason to make art, and I think that's what being a tortured artist means. There has to be a reason behind what you're doing. Now, this is not just restricted to someone who does art, but some other profession, like for example me as well. I'm studying electrical engineering in college, and I have a specific reason to do it, not just because it's something to do, right? You need some sort of reason, and there is a logical and an emotional reasoning behind every decision. You can have a multitude of reasons. You may be sad, you may hate your current circumstances, or simply just like to draw, and that's completely justifiable. But right now though, your reasoning should be laziness, because you're still on YouTube, bro. Stop being lazy and go make some art.